It started with a fall. Not a metaphorical one. A literal fall that took down a table, 2 coffee cups, and, unfortunately, me. Maddox had crashed into me at full speed, drenched in rain and panic, his skateboard flying off like it had a vendetta against gravity. One moment I was scrolling through my notes, and the next, I was sprawled on the ground with a total stranger lying on top of me, his breath warm against my ear as he muttered, "Shit, I'm so sorry." That's how I met Maddox Lane, campus heartthrob, reckless skater, and, apparently, the human embodiment of chaos. "Neil, right?" he'd said after helping me up, rain dripping from his eyelashes. "You're in my photography class." I should have walked away. I should have told him to watch where he was going. But the way he smiled, shameless, boyish, as if accidents were just another way of introducing himself, made something in me pause. It didn't take long for that pause to turn into a problem. 2 days later, someone posted a picture online. It was us, tangled in that ridiculous fall, Maddox's arm around my waist, both of us soaked and laughing. The caption read, "Campus golden boy caught in rainy day romance?" By the next morning, we were trending on the university group chat. People started whispering, staring, smiling knowingly when we passed. Maddox found me at lunch, plopped his tray across from mine, and grinned like the world's biggest idiot. "So, apparently we're dating now," he said. I choked on my coffee. "Excuse me?" "Relax," he laughed. "I'm just saying you and me, Neil the nerd and Maddox the menace. We're viral. Might as well make it official." I stared at him, half horrified, half amused. "You're out of your mind." "Maybe, but it'll stop the rumors faster if we play along," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Fake it till it fades. It's practically science." That was the moment I realized Maddox had a knack for creating disasters, and an even better one for convincing people to join him in them. The plan was simple. Act like a couple for a few weeks until people got bored. Simple. Except nothing about Maddox was ever simple. He started waiting for me after class, walking me home like some overenthusiastic golden retriever. He'd text me things like, "Smile more, you're supposed to look in love," or, "I brought coffee. Come meet your fake boyfriend." The weirdest part? Somewhere between his teasing and those stupidly kind gestures, my heart began to forget the fake part. I tried to remind myself that it was all an act. The way he'd sling an arm around my shoulder, the playful winks, the way he'd laugh at my sarcasm like it was the best sound he'd ever heard. But then I'd catch him looking at me, really looking, with that same boyish warmth that didn't feel staged at all. And I'd think, maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one getting caught up. One night, after a late study session, it started raining again. We were standing under the same awning where we'd first collided. Maddox kicked at the puddles, his jacket damp, hair sticking to his forehead. "You ever notice how people only believe what they want to believe?" he asked quietly. I glanced at him. "You mean the rumors?" "Yeah. Or maybe the way they look at us," he said, shoving his hands into his pockets. "Like they know something we don't." I laughed softly. "Maybe they do." He turned toward me then, slowly, like he was realizing something for the first time. "Do you ever think about what it'd be like if it wasn't fake?" The question hung in the air, heavy and fragile. The rain filled the silence between us. I swallowed hard. "Do you?" Maddox didn't answer right away. He just stepped closer. Close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off him, see the tremor in his jaw as he whispered, "Maybe I shouldn't," but he didn't move away. After that night, pretending became dangerous. We still played our roles, still held hands for show, still laughed for the audience that always seemed to be watching. But beneath it all, there was something else, something raw and real that scared the hell out of me. Every time Maddox's fingers brushed mine, every glance that lingered too long, it felt like a line we weren't supposed to cross was getting thinner and thinner. And then, one afternoon, it snapped. It was after a basketball game, the gym echoing with noise and victory shouts. Someone shouted, "Kiss him, Maddox!" And before I could blink, he did. Right there, in front of everyone. The crowd exploded. Phones flashed. My heart stopped. For a split second, it wasn't about the rumors or the plan. It wasn't fake. It was just him, warm, reckless, and heartbreakingly real. When he pulled away, the look in his eyes was something I couldn't decode. Half triumph, half terror. And me, I was ruined. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed the kiss over and over, trying to convince myself it meant nothing. But the truth was, it had felt like everything. Every bottled-up thought, every almost confession, every stolen moment between us. The next morning, I avoided him, ducking around hallways, skipping class, doing anything to put distance between us. But Maddox wasn't the kind of person you could outrun. He cornered me outside the library, looking exhausted and frustrated. "Neil, talk to me," he said. "There's nothing to talk about," I muttered, not meeting his eyes. "That's bullshit." I froze. Maddox never raised his voice. Not at me. "I know you felt it too," he said, stepping closer. "That kiss wasn't fake, and you damn well know it." "Maddox." "No, listen to me." His voice cracked. "You're the first person who doesn't treat me like some stupid joke. You actually see me, and that scares me more than anything." His confession hit me like a punch. For a second, I couldn't breathe. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "But if you want to pretend it meant nothing, I'll play along. Just tell me that's what you want." I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Because the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted anymore. Later that week, the rumors shifted again. Someone had seen us fighting. Someone said we'd broken up. And just like that, the spotlight moved on. We'd gotten what we wanted, freedom. But it didn't feel like it. The silence between us was louder than the gossip ever was. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me in class, eyes dark and distant. I'd look away before I could do something stupid, like reach for him again. And yet, every night, I'd find myself replaying everything. The laughter, the rain, the kiss, wondering if maybe, in trying to stop the rumors, we'd ended up creating something far more dangerous. Something that neither of us knew how to stop. Maddox stopped coming to class for 3 days. On the 4th, I saw him across the quad, laughing with his friends, skateboard in hand, looking like nothing had ever happened. He caught my eye for half a second, then looked away, smile fading. That small shift, that flicker of distance, hurt more than I expected. I told myself this was what I wanted. No rumors, no pretending, just peace. But peace without him felt like silence in a world that used to be music. That Friday, I found a folded note stuffed in my locker. No name, just scrawled handwriting I knew too well. Rooftop, 7 p.m. I almost didn't go, but curiosity or something deeper pulled me there anyway. The sky was bleeding orange into purple when I stepped out onto the roof. Maddox was sitting near the edge, hoodie pulled over his head, a half-empty soda can beside him. He didn't turn around when he said, "Didn't think you'd come." "I almost didn't," I admitted. He exhaled a laugh, quiet and tired. "Figures. I wouldn't have blamed you." I walked over and sat beside him, leaving just enough space to feel the chill between us. "Why'd you ask me here?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. "Because I'm done pretending I don't care." The words were so soft, I almost missed them. He finally looked at me, really looked, and for the first time in weeks, I saw past the grin, past the confidence. I saw the boy who'd been holding everything together with jokes and half-truths. "Maddox." "No, listen," he said, voice shaking. "I thought pretending would be easy, that it'd fade once people stopped talking. But it didn't. It just made everything worse. Because now, every time I look at you, I can't tell what's real anymore." I swallowed hard. "You think I can?" He smiled, bitter and broken. "You've always been better at hiding it." The wind whipped around us, sharp and cold. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The city stretched out below, glittering and endless, like it didn't care that our world was cracking open. Finally, I whispered, "So what are we supposed to do now?" He turned toward me, eyes searching mine. "Stop pretending. For real this time." And before I could overthink it, Maddox leaned in, slow, deliberate, hesitant, and kissed me again. No audience, no whispers, just us. It wasn't like the first kiss, desperate and reckless. This one was soft, uncertain, the kind of kiss that asked permission and promised answers. When he pulled back, he looked terrified. "Tell me I didn't just screw this up again." I shook my head, breathless. "You didn't." Then, because I couldn't help myself, I added, "You really need to stop using kisses to make a point, though." He laughed, a real laugh this time, and it felt like the sun breaking through clouds. After that night, something shifted. We didn't announce anything. There was no grand confession, no labels, just quiet mornings, late-night talks, shared coffee, and the kind of looks that said more than words ever could. People still whispered, of course, but we didn't care anymore. One afternoon, while studying in the library, Maddox nudged my foot under the table. "You ever think about how ridiculous this all started?" he whispered. I smirked. "You mean when you nearly broke my spine with your skateboard?" "Exactly." He grinned, leaning closer. "Kinda poetic, though. You falling for me and all." I rolled my eyes, but my cheeks betrayed me. "You're impossible. And yet, here you are," he said softly. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the noise of the library fading, the world narrowing to this one fragile, impossible connection. But life, as it tends to do, didn't stay simple. A week later, Maddox got into trouble again. Someone caught him arguing with a professor over a failed assignment, and rumors started swirling. Not about us this time, but about him. Reckless, angry, unfocused. He stopped answering my texts. When I finally found him, he was in the art studio, sitting in front of a blank canvas, staring like it was a mirror he didn't want to face. "Maddox," I said quietly. He didn't look up. "You shouldn't be here. I'm not leaving." He sighed, shoulders tense. "You don't get it, Neil. Everyone's already decided who I am, the screw-up, the show-off. I can't even prove them wrong without someone twisting it." "Then let them talk," I said. "You don't owe them anything." He finally met my gaze, eyes red-rimmed but burning. "You don't get tired of defending people who keep breaking things?" I took a step closer. "Only when they stop trying to fix them." Something in him cracked then. He reached out, hesitant, trembling, and I caught his hand. Neither of us said anything. We didn't need to. Sometimes, love isn't loud. Sometimes it's just staying when the other person thinks they don't deserve it. That night, Maddox sent me a photo, a new painting. Two figures standing in the rain, faces blurred, but their hands were clasped tight. The caption read, "It started with a fall." I didn't need to ask what it meant. A few weeks later, our university hosted a spring art exhibition. Maddox's piece was front and center. People whispered again, not about gossip this time, but about emotion, about how raw and real it felt. I watched from the crowd as Maddox stood beside his work, smiling nervously. When our eyes met across the room, he mouthed, "Thank you." And for the first time, I realized that what we'd built, messy, chaotic, beautiful, had been real all along. After the exhibition, he found me outside, under the same string lights that had flickered over our first fake date. "So," he said, hands in his pockets, "guess we're official now, huh?" I laughed. "You mean after pretending, breaking up, and accidentally starting a campus-wide rumor mill?" "Yeah, sounds about right." He grinned, stepping closer. "Hey, if we're gonna have a story, might as well make it one worth telling." I raised an eyebrow. "You think this is worth it?" He leaned in, his voice low and certain. "Every second." Then he kissed me, no audience, no pretending, just the truth. And for once, it felt like everything had finally fallen into place. The rumors faded eventually, replaced by new gossip, new faces, new stories. But ours, the ridiculous way we met, the lies that turned into truth, the chaos that became love, stayed with me. Because sometimes the most absurd beginnings lead to the most honest endings. And as Maddox always said, grinning like the universe was in on the joke, "Hey, if we had to fall to find each other, I'd crash into you 1,000 times over." It's strange how love settles into the quiet parts of your life. After everything, the chaos, the rumors, the pretending, Maddox and I somehow found our rhythm. Not the kind that makes noise or demands attention, but the kind that hums beneath everything, steady and alive. He still crashed into things. I still overthought every detail, but we learned to laugh through it. Summer came, painting the campus in gold and heat. Finals were over. The air smelled like endings and beginnings all at once. Maddox and I spent most days at his favorite skate spot near the river. He'd skate while I read, and sometimes, when the sun dipped low and the sky went pink, he'd drop his board and sit beside me. "Do you ever think about what happens after this?" he asked one evening. I looked up from my book. "After what?" "College. Everything." He said it so casually, but I could hear the fear beneath it, the fear of what came next when you finally stopped pretending and started living for real. I shrugged. "I think about it all the time. And," I smiled faintly, "I think we figure it out one day at a time." He nodded slowly, as if letting the words sink in. Then he took my hand, no hesitation, no audience, just him. "Yeah," he whispered, "one day at a time." A few weeks later, Maddox invited me to his place for dinner. It wasn't unusual. We'd spent countless nights there, talking until sunrise, but this time felt different. His apartment was lit by candles. Real candles. The kind he used to say were too much effort. I laughed when I saw them. "What's all this?" He gave me that mischievous grin. "A peace offering. I burned your favorite hoodie last week with my hairdryer. Remember?" "You what?" I burst out laughing. He winced. Long story. It involved paint and bad decisions. When the laughter faded, the silence that followed felt warm. He looked at me across the table, eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "I've been thinking," he said quietly, "about how everything started between us." "Oh no," I teased. "You're about to make this dramatic, aren't you?" "Maybe." He leaned forward. "But listen, I used to think we were just a rumor that got out of control. Then I realized maybe the rumor was the only thing real I'd ever done." I froze. He smiled, nervous, genuine. "You make me want to be better, Neil. Not just the funny guy or the one who hides behind a smile. You make me see myself. And I don't ever want to lose that." I felt something tighten in my chest. "You won't," I whispered. "Not if I can help it." Then he reached across the table, took my hand, and said the words that still echo in my mind. "I don't want to pretend anymore. Not about who I am, or how I feel. I love you." It wasn't loud or dramatic. It didn't need to be. It was real. I squeezed his hand, and for the first time I said it back. "I love you too." After that, everything changed, but also nothing did. We didn't become perfect. We still fought sometimes, over stupid things like laundry or who finished the last of the cereal. But underneath it all, there was something unshakable, something honest. He met my parents that summer. They loved him instantly, though my mom pulled me aside later and whispered, "That boy is trouble, but the good kind." I couldn't disagree. Maddox's family was trickier. His dad didn't understand, didn't want to understand. But Maddox stood his ground, voice trembling but steady, and when he walked out of that house, I saw a weight lift off him that had been there for years. That night he called me and said, "I think for the first time I'm free." And I said, "You've been free all along. You just didn't believe it yet." He went quiet for a long time after that. Then he whispered, "Thank you." By autumn we had both graduated. I got a job offer in another city. Maddox was accepted into an art residency program halfway across the state. We didn't talk about distance right away. It hung between us like the last unspoken secret. The night before I was supposed to leave, we went back to the rooftop where everything had changed. The same one where he'd first kissed me. The air smelled of rain again, like the universe was repeating itself on purpose. He sat beside me, looking out over the city. "Funny," he said. "I used to think this rooftop was the end of something. And now?" I asked. He smiled. "Now I think it's where everything began." I wanted to say something, but my throat was too tight. He noticed, of course, he always noticed. "Hey," he murmured, bumping my shoulder. "It's not goodbye, you know, just a see you soon." I nodded, blinking back the sting in my eyes. "You better mean that." He grinned. "Would I ever lie to you again?" "Yes," I said, laughing through the tears. "Constantly." "Fair." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver ring. It wasn't fancy, just a simple band engraved with a tiny lightning bolt. "For when you forget that chaos isn't always bad," he said. "Sometimes it leads you exactly where you're supposed to be." I slipped it on, heart pounding. "You really are the most ridiculous person I've ever met. And you love me for it." "Yeah," I whispered. "I really do." Months passed. We texted every day, called every week. Sometimes the distance felt unbearable. Other times, it felt like proof of how far we'd come. He sent me photos of his new art, paintings full of light and movement, all carrying pieces of our story. I sent him letters full of words I could never say out loud. One of them read, "I used to think our love was born out of rumor, out of accident. But maybe it was just fate wearing a ridiculous disguise." He replied with a photo of us from that first rainy day. Blurry, chaotic, perfect. The caption said, "Still falling. Always will be." A year later, he came to visit. We met at the train station, the same nervous energy buzzing between us as if no time had passed at all. He dropped his bag, pulled me into his arms, and whispered, "Told you it was only see you soon." I laughed into his shoulder. "You're still late. Worth it." When we finally pulled back, his eyes were the same, wild, sincere, full of trouble and truth. And I realized something then. We'd spent so long trying to stop rumors, trying to control what people saw, that we'd forgotten the only story that really mattered was ours. The real one. The messy, beautiful, ridiculous one that started with a fall and never really stopped. Years from now, when people ask how we met, we still laugh before answering. Because how do you explain that love sometimes begins in chaos? That sometimes the most absurd accidents end up becoming the truest parts of you? So we just smile, look at each other, and say, "We met in the most ridiculous way, and somehow, it turned out perfect." The first thing I notice when I wake up is the smell of coffee. Strong, a little burnt, his signature. Then comes the sound of quiet humming from the kitchen. That low, familiar tune Maddox always sings when he's lost in his own head. 5 years. Sometimes, I still can't believe it's been that long since that first ridiculous fall. That crash of limbs and laughter and spilled coffee that somehow changed everything. I sit up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and glance toward the open balcony. Our apartment overlooks the river now, just a few blocks from where Maddox used to skate every afternoon. The walls are covered in his art, fragments of our story splashed in color and motion. There's a painting of rain, another of sunlight through glass, and one that still makes me smile every time I see it. 2 figures falling, tangled in motion, holding on to each other like they're learning how to fly. "Morning sunshine," he calls from the kitchen. I grin. "You burned it again, didn't you?" Define burned. "That means yes." He laughs. That same carefree sound that's become the pulse of my mornings. When he steps into the doorway, he's wearing one of my old shirts. Sleeves rolled, hair still damp, a faint smear of paint on his wrist like he's already been creating before breakfast. "You still overanalyze everything?" he teases, placing a mug in my hands.